Hi, everybody, and welcome to Community Cleric. Thank you for joining us tonight. I have with me Kaiya tonight.
Hello.
Yes, yay, and I unmuted. Yes, look at off the top, learning from previous mistakes. Kaiya is amazing, and she just gives off this super fantastic presence on Twitter. And something that I have learned about her over the few weeks, I think I contacted her like 6 weeks ago, actually, to set this up. Something that I have learned over that time is that she, obviously, she loves TTRPGs. That's been one of my deciding factor, one of the two deciding factors. But Stargate specifically, and if you know me at all, you know Stargate is like a deep-seated passion for me. I love it so much. I joke sometimes that I moved to Vancouver because that's where they filmed Stargate. That's not 100% true, but it's a little bit percent true.
It's more than 0% true.
It's more than zero, 100%. How are you doing tonight, Kaiya? Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I am doing as well as I possibly could be, considering we're in the middle of a move. And like I said before the show, if it weren't for this green screen, you would see just boxes and boxes behind me. So just trying
Yeah.
to get by.
Yeah, I definitely I'm at that age where the last time I did a move was just like in my little town. Actually, the last two times. In my little town, I had just some like local guys who did some labor move
Mhm.
our stuff, but it wasn't very much stuff. I don't move myself anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm too old to move
Yeah.
myself anymore.
Yeah.
But it wasn't very much stuff because we had moved across the country and we brought very little with us. So, and
Yeah.
we're never moving again. Yeah.
Best way to just weed out all of the things that
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was bananas. Are you're moving close-ish to where you are now, or like
Yeah.
way out?
We thought for a while that we were going to have to move at least an hour away, but in the end, we found a place about 10 minutes away from our current place,
What?
which
That's
is
awesome.
which is great. Yeah. We're moving some of our own, little things ourselves, and then the movers are coming by for the furniture because, yeah, you get to a certain age, it's just not worth possibly throwing out your back when, you have a day job for a reason.
Yes.
You might as well use the money well.
Exactly. We definitely were put into that position where we had a little bit of extra money, which kind of fueled the okay, we're not living paycheck to paycheck. We could potentially, if we're going to do it, now's the
Yeah.
time to do it because we were
Yeah.
going into debt living in the big city and we moved. We did one of those like Hallmark moves where we sold almost everything and we moved across the country to a small New England town and
Hmm.
went from $2,500 of rent in the city to less than 1,000 for a mortgage on land and like, you know,
That sounds heavenly right now.
you know
And is
what?
that also?
It has its small towns are small, and
Mm.
so and especially like New England, the Atlantic Maritime, where I am in Canada, everybody is related to somebody else, and you are the people who aren't. And like
Uh-huh.
people are super friendly, but yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's there's pluses and minuses. We miss good food. We really miss good food. My mod
Yeah.
is, yeah, my mod's gonna chime in here because I left her to move across the country. I mean, I didn't
Oh
leave
no.
her, but like she lived down the street from me. Um, okay, enough about moving. Nobody wants to think about moving. Let's distract you for an hour.
Yes. Escapism from the
It's,
moving.
it's what we come here to do anyway. Tell me all about how you became a nerd.
Well, I kind of had no choice, considering that my parents moved here from China on the strength of my dad's grad school fellowship for physics.
Okay,
So I was just raised in a house full of a whole bunch of books that were way too advanced for me.
sure.
So my dad's background is in physics, and my mom was a pediatrician before she moved here. And growing up, both of them stressed the value of like a really good education and taking your
Right.
studies seriously. And you know, if I wasn't doing schoolwork, then I could always be, reading some other sort of book to improve myself.
Right.
So my social skills were not the best growing up.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but I really fell into fantasy very early on.
Okay.
I would spend lunches in middle school just in the school library, which my middle school had a surprisingly large school library, and just reading about, unicorns and dragons and magicians, and it was so great. And my parents hated it because they thought I should be, you
Right.
know, you know, putting my mind towards more classically acceptable
Living
educational.
literature. Yeah.
And then when I was 15 or 16, my first boyfriend, well, now girlfriend, retroactively, got me into Dungeons and Dragons, which I had seen the books for at bookstores and, leafed through a couple of times. But, for the first time, I found a bunch of people who were willing to go all in on this collective fantasy. And it was just fantastic. I know a lot of other people in the TTRPG space, had it kind of rough. Got bullied for playing D&D or wanting to play D&D, maybe got excluded for wanting to do TTRPGs that weren't D&D. But I was extremely lucky in that I had really supportive and enthusiastic people. I, somehow found all the right crowds the entire way. And I know not everybody, gets to have that. It's, you know, it's basically our responsibility now to make sure that more and more people get that experience, because it can be really magical and formative.
I 100% agree with that. And my first experience was also a high school boyfriend. And they were playing like AD&D. This was 2000,
Hmm.
99, 2000. And they were playing AD&D and they were min-maxers. I understand the
Oh
terminology
no.
now, but I
Uh-huh.
was a theater kid. And so I was like, wait, I don't have to play the princess,
Hmm.
or I can play the princess who's a badass, like before Disney was making those movies, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yes, please. And they were like, they were so kindly and they weren't trying to gatekeep and they weren't being judgy. They were like, if you want to have fun at our table and we want to have fun having you at our table, we do want that. This
Hmm.
is how you play correctly. And so it wasn't like a
Okay.
case where they were being like dicks to be dicks to the girl. That was
Hmm.
they were good. They are good men as far as like I know on Facebook, whatever that tells you. But yeah, I get that. I get that. So fantasy, because that is, it's either like fantasy or sci-fi are the gateways into, and maybe a little bit of lacking social skills. We haven't outright identified that, but I can see how that plays in sometimes. What are some of your favorite fantasy series? And was it
Oh
just
gosh.
books or was it also movies and TV and video games and other stuff?
It was mostly books. We didn't really watch all that much TV. It didn't really go out to that many movies, although I did get to see all of the Lord of the Rings movies in theaters when they came out, because I was, exactly the right age for those to hit the right way. But mostly it was books. Um, I think one series that I will always, always plug, because it is the magical school fantasy for me, is a Wizard of Earthsea. It is, um, it can read as like a little simplistic and dated now, because the way that it was so groundbreaking at the time. It sort of formulated all the tropes that everybody else picks up on and runs with now. But as far as I can tell, it sounds like before Ursula Le Guin wrote it, a lot of the wizards in fantasy were, assumed to be all of these very old and wizened, like, old men with the long white beards. And she really wanted to do a deep dive in what make somebody become a wizard like that. And in the process came up with the whole, magic school idea, which you know, I still think is more iconic than that other magic school that we don't talk about. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, that's
love it.
that is excellent. I took the other way. I took the sci-fi way
Hmm.
because my grandpa liked Star Trek, and he would take me to the Star Trek movies as they were coming out. And so, and then going from there to like theater and the Renaissance Fair. Well, not as necessarily the Renaissance Fair, but my high school theater teacher was really big into the SCA, which is like
Oh yeah.
hardcore Ren Fair.
Yes.
Like they're
Hmm.
very like they're historical reenactors. They're not like come and get drunk and
Yeah.
hopefully don't get kicked out because you've groped people inappropriately kind of a situation.
Mhm.
Thank you, Cassie and DMDM Studios, for the follows. That's so awesome.
Hi
Thank you for
Cassie.
that.
Hi DMDM.
So yes, I totally, I totally get those ways in, and I've heard Wizard of Earthsea is like, I don't know if you watch Actually, it's a show on, it's by like the channel that does Dimension 20, and
No.
it's where they ask a question and the question has something really freaking mundanely wrong with it, like
Hmm.
really pretentiously wrong, and you have to be like, actually this is the right answer. It's so, but it's all like the Dimension 20 people and all of that. Zambari, thank you for the follow. It's all of it's and the Wizard of Earthsea episode is one of my favorite episodes because it's just got excellent people. I will send you the link for it from YouTube
I'm
later.
very curious about it now. Yeah.
I live for those episodes. I love that episode. I love the show. Um,
Hmm.
okay, so you got in. You were a fantasy nerd who then got into D&D.
Hmm.
What does that journey to streaming look like for you?
Well, it's funny because um, I had a couple of missed opportunities to get into the Ren Fair and the SCA side of things. First couple of years of college, I actually went to the interest meeting for the SCA club at my college and then went, oh, but this is going to conflict with this other thing, and like never went back, which I mildly regret now. But um, when I moved away from home for college and left my high school D&D group, I actually kind of stopped playing D&D for about a decade. Still played, a couple times here and there with people I didn't know all that well, but I got into live action role playing instead. And so that's like mostly what I've been doing for the last 15 years or so. And it's been really interesting to go through with this entirely different starting point, this approach to role playing, and then coming back to D&D about 5 years ago, um, armed with all of this knowledge about how to approach a character's psychology and realizing that a lot of the D&D players, don't have that sort of background. Um, so I started writing a little bit about, how to think about a character, how to approach a character from the inside out. And then simultaneously, sort of out of happenstance, I was on the Curse of Strahd DM Discord, which is this gigantic Discord. Oh, hi, Zio. Yeah. Zio in chat, who is the owner of that Discord, can probably talk about it a lot more than I can. But it's an amazing resource. Thousands and thousands of Curse of Strahd DMs, so many resources, guides, artwork, just a lot of great stuff. But by happenstance, Dragna Carta, who is another mod in the community and just a big name in the community in general, he wrote this gigantic, like hundreds of pages guide to how to fix some of the more problematic aspects of the module. Um, he decided that he wanted to run a streamed game that was just the module as written, because there's so many community changes to it by now that a lot of the people in the community have forgotten that there are various aspects that weren't in the original book. And so he wanted to have a show that just went just the printed words in the book and see where it went. And I happened to be one of the first people to register some interest. And so that's where Curse of Strahd Twice Bitten came from. And that stream just wrapped up a couple of months ago. That was definitely a roller coaster of an experience. And it's how I got into streaming, how I got more into Twitter, and the gateway to me meeting so many like utterly fantastic people, and finding the larger TTRPG community in general.
I love that. Discord has been such a great place to connect with other people and to build those communities. I mostly stream with Vancouver by Night, and their like family Discord that's just for the people who stream is one of like my favorite places to go and just get hyped up, and we share with each other the other stuff that we're doing. And like, yeah, it's having those places where you can go and connect with people is so important. And I love that you were able to take those ideas and connections and come up with Twice Bitten, which is kind of a different take. Do you want to tell everybody what the thing about Twice Bitten is?
Yeah. So as I mentioned a little bit before, it is just 100% rules as written. This means that if there's anybody here who has not yet played or DM'd Curse of Strahd, please close your ears for a moment. Um, some very large community changes, such as the Fanes, such as the invitation to dinner that is an actual dinner. Um, People forget that, such as Vasili being a thing. People forget that these are not actually in the module, and they're so popular nowadays. And people have come up with so many great, unique spins on them. Um, and these are, innovations that I think actually improves the story a lot. Um, but a lot of the discussion around Curse of Strahd and how to run it, at least in this Discord, rests so heavily on the assumption that these are going to be part of your adventure that there are a lot of DMs who have forgotten what's in the book and what isn't. And I certainly was one of them. So going back through and playing the adventure just literally the words that are in the printed book was a very different experience than I think any of us really expected it to be. Um, there are also a lot of things in the module that we forgot were there in the first place. And Dragna Carta also had an interesting time discovering and having to reconcile a bunch of contradictions that are in the printed book. So he came up with some very creative and clever ways to resolve those. But the other major pillar of the series is that all of the players, because we were all Curse of Strahd DMs who knew the module, um, one of the ways in which we were going to attempt to not metagame is to deliberately play characters who are not heroes, characters who are cowardly or selfish or just want to go home, players who you wouldn't expect to step up to the plate and go do the good thing. And we were going to see whether it was the case that Barovia is supposed to be sort of a crucible for the soul, a place where these sorts of people could become greater than they were, not just in terms of levels, but in terms of becoming, nobler people afterwards. And I think that came out a little bit differently for each of the characters at the end. Definitely, some of the characters came through on the other side, basically your classic hero. And others, I think mine in particular, might have come out the other side little bit more ruthless and evil even than when she entered. So I know we have a lot of viewers who really just went in there out of curiosity or wanted to try it because they were also in the Discord, and a lot of people have said that they just love the character exploration side of things because we get really deep into the character role play.
I love that. I am a module person myself. My
Mm-hmm.
poster here, we called my stream Fandolin by Night because I play on or I DM on Vancouver by Night, which is known for their Vampire the Masquerade stuff, but I do D&D content, and I had some newer players, so I said, well, I'll run Lost Mines of Phandelver because, in my
As you do.
opinion, it is one of the best modules. Like, people are like, oh, it's the starter module, how good can it be? It's really good. It has a little bit of everything because it helps people figure out their play style. We have played for, I think we're on episode 30 something, and we haven't even made it to Cragmaw Castle yet.
Oh, wow.
We're like, my players come in full costume. I have a purple tiefling and an orange tiefling who are full body paint, a half
Oh,
orc who is like
nice.
full face paint,
Mhm.
something we're not really sure. I know what he is. Nobody else is really sure what he is.
No
Who
spoilers.
yeah, does blue scales with like, I see him like
Ooh.
spray painting using like a piece of like fishnet or doily before the
Hmm.
stream. It is I love it when you can take a module and really find new life in it. Because there's
Absolutely.
no way Lost Mines of Phandelver should take 70 hours to play and not even be halfway through. So
Hmm.
I love that. I am so jealous of the people who can play Curse of Strahd. And I think Descent into Avernus is another one for me that I'm I really struggle with horror. Like after my daughter was born, I had really bad postpartum anxiety, and it
Hmm.
never fully went away. She's 13. It never fully went away, and so I really struggle with all of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zio and Martlet, for following. I really appreciate that, you guys. And for those of you who come week to week, I put the thing back in the chat where it shows this person followed and it makes a little sound. I don't know. Do we like that? Please give me your opinions. I don't know if I like it or not. I can't turn it down. That's the problem, Kaya. It's so loud. And it like anyway, that's neither here nor there. Please let me know. Also, if you got ads, could you let me know because I have them disabled. I have triple checked. There should be should be getting ads. So could you let me know? Thank you. Um, okay. What? So you play Curse of Strahd, or you were playing in Curse of Strahd. It's finished.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Stargate above your shelf. I've got the little symbol for home. How did that come about?
Um, I have a confession to make, which is that I have actually never watched Stargate. And somehow, when I said that to the very, very lovely DM, Last Hit Point Hero, who was trying to recruit me to play in his campaign, somehow when I said that, he said, "It's okay. You don't have to have any knowledge. Just come in, and we'll sort of onboard you as you go." Um, so that came about because partway through Curse of Strahd, Twice Bitten, I realized that I wanted to be in more streams, but not have to worry about, a whole bunch of the back end stuff. Because we didn't, in Twice Bitten, we didn't really realize how much work it was going to be, or how much more work it was going to be when people started liking it and making it, popular. Um, and so I joined TPK Roleplay, which is a group that, was already established, had sort of a dedicated back end crew, staff who had already worked these things out. And I felt that I could just be, relax and be more of just a player. Um, and so Yes, Zio, there was so much back end stuff, and thank you so much, Zio, for taking care of pretty much all of the things that I wasn't taking care of. Zio is such a blessing. Um, but yeah, so I joined TPK Roleplay, and they have a system where people can post a call to arms for campaigns that they want to run, and then whoever, basically jumps up and down going me, first can sign up for them. Some of them are streamed, some of them are not. Um, and so I thought when I was approached to do the Stargate campaign, surely there's somebody else in here who knows more about the series, who can, do it justice. But he said, no, 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 it's okay. We would like you on the show. And so I decided to play a character who knows nothing about what's going on, just, for verisimilitude. And the other players, because the other thing was that I was jumping in the middle of an arc. They were doing this extremely fun thing where there was two campaigns going on at once, basically a good guy team and a bad guy team, and they were sort of interfering with each other. And halfway through the arc, it was revealed that one of the people on the good guy team was secretly working for the bad guys. One of the people on the bad guy team was secretly working for the good guys. So they, kind of swapped, defected or undefected, as the case may be. And that's also when I joined. So the other players were so fantastic. They had already been playing together with each other for, 4 or 5 episodes already, but they were just so welcoming and, took care to put the spotlight on my character and, were kind enough to explain concepts in character to my character as well as out of character to me. Um, so, and I've been told by friends who have actually watched Stargate and were watching the stream that the stream felt a lot like an actual episode of the show. So now that I've been through that campaign, I have much more of an interest in going back and watching the actual show because the
Yeah.
campaign was such a blast.
I mean there's multiple different properties. I can't think of another franchise that has a number of properties under the same umbrella that are as different as
Mhm.
that. Like I mean, maybe the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but Stargate did it 20 years before that. So,
Yeah.
there was like the movie with the big stars, which is really the only thing I can watch James Spader in because he super creeps me out in other stuff. But he was like this fresh faced little baby scientist, who I just totally connected with. And then the original show, the like SG-1, was very much, I think, the whole premise is nobody on the earth really knows what these things are until this one scientist figured out how to work it. So coming in and playing a character who doesn't totally know what's going on, I think that's not outside of the realm as much as something like Curse of Strahd or the Forgotten Realms, where you would kind of know the basic deity, you would kind of know the basic governmental structure of the Sword Coast or whatever. So I
Mhm.
think Stargate is exactly the right place to join that stuff. And like Star Trek and Star Wars, there is lore that you kind of need to
There's
know.
so
Lord of the
much lore.
Rings. I'm just about to start a Lord of the Rings campaign, and I'm not a Lord of the Rings nerd. I've watched the movies. I love the movies. I watch the movies multiple times a year, but I'm not a
Mhm.
huge Lord of the Rings nerd. And so my stuff isn't directly dealing with those with the characters. But anyway, Stargate I think is a good one. But so there's the movie, which is different than the TV show, which was like a little bit camp, but did like sci-fi was in the 90s, did
Mhm.
occasionally come across like a really decent social issue that they could disguise as we're going to go explore this other culture who's going through this thing and learn something about ourselves in the process.
Yeah.
And then Stargate Atlantis with baby Jason Momoa was the first thing I remember seeing him in.
Uh-huh.
And it's so good. And then Stargate Universe was only, I think, 2 or 3 seasons. And
Mhm.
it was, it didn't do well because people wanted like a campy villain of the week kind of a shtick like the first two series had been. And it
Mhm.
was Lou Diamond Phillips and David Blue, who's now a huge TTRPG player, and the guy from the guy who played Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time, who I can't remember his name, but he's like a serious actor.
Uh-huh.
and Ming Na Wen. And it was gritty and realistic, and the characters were good, and like the it I would say start with Stargate Universe and
Okay.
then go back and watch kind of the campy ones that are fun to like binge when
Hmm.
when you're sick for the week, because if you fall asleep during one of the episodes you still kind of basically know what's going on, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
um yes, there's lots of chat about Stargate. Yeah,
Yes.
you can love sci-fi without ever watching Stargate. It's one of my favorite things, but it doesn't have to be everybody's. That is one of the big themes of like community cleric, is we don't all have to like the same things. Nobody can be a gatekeeper. We can all love and let other people love their things. Um, I want to go back a few minutes because I was thinking about it and then I started thinking about Curse of Strahd. But you LARP, or you were LARPing.
Yes.
What did that journey look like, and what was your experience? It's one of the things that I haven't done. What was that experience like for you? What was the good, and what you know? Tell me about it.
So it sort of um, when you say the when one says the word LARP in a TTRPG space, I find that usually the thing that people think about first is people with buffers running through the woods and that one person like throwing spell packets going fireball, fireball. That is buffer LARPing. And I have the highest respect for people who do buffer LARPing. They are so fit. Like you swing a sword for 6 hours a day, you get muscles. They are more physically fit than I will probably ever be. I do theatrical LARPing or parlor LARPing, which is um, kind of like the precursor to what people do. I've seen an increasing number of sort of murder mystery games. It's sort of the same premise, but a lot more. Um, in my particular tradition, you get a pre-written character sheet with your character psychology, some of your goals, and often you have secrets written into your backstory that are carefully planned so that over the course of the game, which can take place over 1 hour or 5 hours or 8 hours or a whole weekend or sometimes even longer, over the course of the game, just when you speak as your character to other characters, you might say something that you don't realize, the secret that comes out is something crucial to them. And so as the writers write these character sheets, they're embedding these little plot hooks for, from each character to others. Like they're foreseeing interactions that will happen. They are foreseeing something that, one character might have that another character really needs for their goals. Because ultimately the goal is, at least it feels like from a player perspective, I know this is not really a conscious goal that some writers go in with. The goal is for the characters to be able to create a meaningful story just from the interactions with each other. There is no GM that is running things. There is no GM who is describing what you all see. They're off in the corner just watching. And if you have a mechanic that might say, okay, when you get these 3 item cards, go to the GM and they'll turn it into something else. But otherwise, it's just you and all of the other characters who are there, and it's extremely immersive because of that, because you're not constantly being reminded of the difference between what you're doing and what you're actually doing. I've played, I think I think I'm up to 40 LARPs by now, which is a very small number compared to a lot of my friends who stayed on the East Coast. My primary LARPing group is on the East Coast.
Where
And
are they?
after
I'm going to join. Where?
they
Shout them
are
out.
mainly in New York City. Lord Pido in chat is the one to talk to if anybody wants
Hey.
to sign up for LARPing around New York City. Um, Yeah, and I sort of fell into it completely by accident. I was on my way. on a train from New Jersey up to Boston, visiting a friend in college. And on my way there, she texted me saying, "Hey, I'm in a LARP this weekend, and one of the other players just dropped, and we really need somebody to fill this role. Like, are you willing to do this?" And at the time, I also still thought it was, going to be running in the woods with a, giant foam stick. But I said, sure. And instead, when I got there, what I got was a beautifully written piece of psychological inquiry into the depths of this one particular anime character, because as it turned out, my first LARP was a crossover between the animes Revolutionary Girl Utena and Neon Genesis Evangelion. And it was a production that went on for almost a full day. We were in I think we took over an entire building and a half on this college campus. There were, I want to say, almost 30 people involved, and we were just sort of running around having duels with foam swords. There were still foam swords involved. Having intense emotions, um, just all of this, just this entire world that I had never seen before. And it was an overwhelming and magical experience. And so I said, where do I get more of this? Well,
I
the
I love that. I don't want to cut you off. I
uh,
have so many. My poor neurodivergent brain is like zing zing zing, uh, because first off, like I can see so many. I didn't realize this was a thing. I feel
mhm.
like I've been doing this with myself, just walking around the house, like doing my dishes as if I'm like a servant from Downton Abbey because I haven't seen Bridgerton yet. Like all day long. I am so in love with this idea. I like probably so many in our chat thought that LARP was Boffer Sticks and
Yep,
Unicorn City, which is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's on Amazon
I
Prime. It's so good.
I
Um,
haven't seen it,
oh my
so
gosh, it is Boffer Stick LARPing, but it's so good.
okay.
Go see it. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, like I love this idea and the fact that it probably encompassed so many different fandoms depending on who was putting it on. Is there because you're talking about character sheets, is there a system that is designed, a rule set that's designed out for this, or was this kind of just amalgamated homebrew, people were just talking about this and decided to do this?
So, as it turns out, at least in the tradition that I am in, the writers write different mechanical systems for every single LARP, depending on what they want the setting to be like. So, it turns out that most of the LARPs that I've played since then are nothing like the very first one. They're not all sort of fan LARPs of existing large franchises. The third one that I played is actually one that I am talking a lot about these days because it has informed a lot of my opinions about characterization. It is called The Dance and the Dawn. It is by a very good friend, Warren Tusk. I am going to hope that Lord Pido can put the link in the chat to where you
If
can buy the game.
if he can't, my mod is on it. It's called,
Okay.
sorry, say again what it's called.
The Dance and the Dawn
The
by
dance,
Warren Tusk.
the dance and the dawn. Singlis will get it up there. She's the best mod. If anybody's looking for a good mod, you can't steal her, but you can borrow her sometimes. She's the best mod. The dance and the dusk.
And the Dawn.
The dance and the dawn by Warren
Mhm.
Tusk. Okay,
Yes.
keep going, keep going.
And so this one is um, it's what people in my community now call a speed dating LARP, because the premise is that there are 7 lords of ice who live on the Isle of Ice, and 6 ladies of ash who live on the Isle of Ash. And once every 100 years, they come together for a midnight ball, and they dance with each other, and they have to get to know each other very quickly, because at the end of the night, they have to try to figure out who is their true love. And if they can find their fated true love and, leave with them, then they can find their fairy tale, happy ending. But you notice that the numbers don't line up. There is one Lord of Ice who is a soulless monster, and whoever ends up with him is fated to an eternity of suffering. And also, if you just happen to choose the wrong people, then you get these, bittersweet endings. And so it's sort of a deconstruction of dark fairy tales. Everybody has these fairy tale backstories, talking about what they've gone through to get to this point. And there have been a lot of sort of spin-offs and sequels written with different characters, but using the same framework of, seven lords, six ladies, 21 dances, one night. Um, you know, Now this is starting to sound like some sort of wrestling promo.
It's starting to sound like the
21 dances,
best.
one night.
I love it.
You'll pay for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge. But yeah, that was the way that those characters were written, because the entire gameplay is trying to figure out how to talk about yourself and what you've been through, that makes it click in the mind of the person who's supposed to be your true love. The way that the character sheets are written really helped me think about what characters should be written like, who they are super deep on the inside and how they try to present themselves to the world.
I think that this is so exciting. I am my mod and then my other real life bestie are coming to visit me in May, and
Excellent.
I'm going to force them into something like this, which is way outside their comfort zones. But
Mm.
I'm gonna have to do something. And Lord Pido, look out! You're only a 12-hour drive, bud. And uh, once things calm, I'm coming to do this. This is so awesome. And I'm also trying to figure out, like, how do we stream this and make this, like, there's got to be a way. Anyway, that
It's
is so cool. Um,
yeah, it's interesting thinking about streaming a LARP, because I've been thinking for a while about the differences between, the experience role playing at a tabletop versus role playing in a LARP, because one of the big things about tabletop is that you only get one spotlight at a time, because usually there is only one DM. And so the sort of camera is only on one spot at a time. So you get this phenomenon where people at a tabletop might be, bored because it's quote unquote not their turn, whether or not this is like their turn during a combat or just their turn to have a bit of a spotlight. So they're on their phones and building dice towers. But um, during a LARP, since there's no one centralized place where everything happens, every single person is the center of their own story. And you might have, 30 different conversations all going on in the same space, but everybody is sort of actively living out their own story all at once. And this is really hard for anybody who's watching to be able to tell where they should be in order to pick up on, what's happening, where the story is. Um, this is often a difficulty for the GMs because they can't be aware of everything that's going on all the time. And is also a difficulty when you're thinking about streaming a LARP, because where do you put the cameras? Do you have a production where you have like literally five different cameras, all pointed at different spots? And I think that this is probably why I, at least, have never heard of a LARP stream before. But if somebody can do it, then that would be fantastic.
I'm thinking of, like, if everybody streamed on their own Twitch channel, but in
Mhm.
Discord, you manage it all through Discord, and Discord, or I guess you could do Zoom and like breakout rooms. And the GM's job was to run like the main stream and partner people and bring people in at different times. Um,
Mhm.
but then anybody in the audience could go and watch anybody's stream because they were all happening. Um, oh man, that would be such a feat. Tav is in chat, Tav or not, who just did this amazing fundraiser for Trans Texas, and he is. I'm just gonna voluntold him for this position because he's a logistical organizer. So Tav,
Mhm.
it's up to you to figure out how to do it, and Kaya and I will show up and we'll
Yeah.
participate, but you have to figure out how to do that. So there you go. I love
Funny
that.
thing though, because of the pandemic, there are a lot of people who started writing LARPs that could be played over Zoom or over Discord. And so now that I think about it, you could do a thing where you run
Yeah.
one of those and you stream the video for that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Huh.
Uh, when you figure it out, I'm there. Put out the call. I will be there for that. I think that's so cool. And obviously everybody in chat will as well. Um, um, I have to ask about dice.
Mhm.
Do you have favorite dice? Do you have dice superstition? I forgot to tell you to grab dice before the stream. People like to show off their dice. What are
I will be right back.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to talk for a second while Kaya goes to get that. Hey, everybody! Thanks for following. My name is Sarah. I do Community Cleric every week. Every week I have different women on. So hit follow or subscribe. Follow is the free one. Hit follow and come back and see the next couple weeks. I've just got an amazing lineup. Okay. Okay. Dice. Let's talk dice.
Okay. So, the vast majority of the D&D that I've been playing over the last 5 years is all online. This was the case, even before coronavirus, because the game that basically drew me wholeheartedly back into D&D was run. There were 8 PCs, and between the 8 PCs and the one DM, I think the 9 of us were in 5 different countries. And so, obviously we could never meet up and have a session in person. And since then, the games that I've been running have always had at least one player who was 8 time zones away from me. So I don't have a giant pretty dice collection, but I did get myself a commemorative set of dice for my PC in that giant 8 PC campaign. Um, they are, uh, let's see how well this shows up. They are clear and sparkly, with bits of gold and rose petals inside.
I
I
love
cannot
them. Do you
see.
the green screen is kind of messing with the clear parts.
Yeah.
If you put
Hmm.
your hand behind it and hold it in front, that is how a lot of people get it to work. Oh, they're so pretty. Who do you know who made them? Because my mod will go and find the link because we love shouting. We are dice goblins here on Community Cleric. We are hoarders of the dice. So tell us if you know.
Yes, this is by the Thornless Rose, and they are a UK-based, I think, indie dice creator. I'm gonna show off this D6 as well.
I love that so much. I think that
My
that is gorgeous with rose petals in it.
Yes,
Oh, I love them.
real flakes of gold and rose
Oh
petals.
my gosh.
The PC that these are meant to commemorate was a cleric of Sune, who is the goddess of love and beauty and vanity and all that sort of thing. So my cleric behaved appropriately, and therefore the gold and the rose petals. And
I what subclass was your cleric?
she was a life cleric,
As the name
and
implies, I am somewhat invested. My goal is that I will stream every subclass of cleric because clerics are the best class. They have the most utility. Like, fight
Mhm.
me in the chat. Don't fight me. Don't even at me. Clerics are the best class, okay? And every subclass is a work of art. A life cleric is like the traditional cleric. Like, it is the heart of what people think clerics do. So I love this. Okay, tell me more about her.
So she was actually based on one of my World of Warcraft characters, and She was a mage in World of Warcraft, and so I was originally going to bring her over as a wizard, but the game already had a wizard. I was also coming into this campaign when it was already more than halfway through. This seems to be a trend with me. And so the DM suggested that I make a cleric instead, because a certain few of the PCs had this tendency to go rushing off into battle and get slightly beaten up for it. And so that was going to be an easy way for my PC to make a few friends by letting them not die. Um, and yeah, that never tried to run a game with 8 PCs, but also that was just such an amazing experience, just being in a table that boisterous and full of life.
I love that. I am a middle school teacher, which is, I should mention, which is why my auto mod is set to such high things, because I
Yeah.
know there is going to come a point at which my students find my Twitch stream, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them. This is my real name. Like, I'm not afraid of being found by strangers on the internet. My job's going to be on the line no matter what if somebody wants to say something. But I don't want my kids to accidentally dox themselves, or to be
Yeah.
like, hey, you're my teacher at blank, blank, blank school. And, like, they're
Mm-hmm.
minors, it's different. So I'm sorry for those of you who my mod is not like my mod singlist, but my auto mod is extra sensitive because of that. But I run the D&D club at my school. And 2 years ago, I was teaching middle school, and I ran the D&D club. And for our winter party, the D&D club had a quarter of all the grade 7s in it, and I ran an after school party. It lasted about 4 hours. Usually we met at lunch, so 45 minutes. A
Mm-hmm.
4 hour game, and it was 16 middle schoolers that I ran a game for. And I ended
Wow.
up doing it like an escape room where they all had to break out and do separate puzzles. And
Mm-hmm.
it was so much fun. Please, 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 for those of you who are in chat, find a way at some point in your life to DM for kids, because it will make you fall in love with this game all over again. Um, so I love that. Okay, and so you had a cleric, you had eight, you were managing 8 people. Do you prefer to DM or you prefer to play?
I can do both at this point. I was in that game as a player, and then I moved to DMing Curse of Strahd, and then I started DMing a Tomb of Annihilation campaign, which is now on hold. You said earlier that you're just a module sort of person, and I am kind of the same in that I will get a published module and look at it, and I'm going to rip out 60% of it and throw it away and add my own stuff into it that is tailored specifically towards my players. And so and then since then I've been playing in all of these, streamed campaigns or one shots. When I am playing, I really like to play characters that don't really like to talk about themselves very much and want to know more about the other PCs instead. And then when I am DMing, I end up putting a lot more heart into my NPCs than I, originally set out to. So again, I think that's just my LARPing background peeking through the psychology. I need the psychology. Um, but at the end of the day, that's sort of what D&D is about. It's about the people,
Yeah.
and that means both the players and the PC, and the DM and the NPCs. um,
Yes.
I used to do these massive feats of world building when I was still like a teenage fantasy nerd, and didn't have other people to share these fantasy worlds with. And nowadays, I don't lean so heavily on the world building anymore, because it's the people who are more important, and that you put at the center of everything.
I totally agree with that. I am definitely that DM who will like throw out the stat block, because combat is over when combat ceases to be fun or serve a narrative purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I run my whole game. Like, if what you're suggesting that you would like to do with your character is epic, in line with character seed development that you're building, or, like, yes, of course, we're going to make that happen for you. And for the same way, like, I was just saying this with a couple of women that I was talking to the other night. Shout out to Zulmain and Ryu. We were talking about dice and how the dice are the other player at the table. And I like that. Not everybody does like that. There are dice-like games, but I like that there is a chaotic element outside that nobody gets to control. That it's just chaos. Yeah. But also, my job as a DM is to manage the players at the table, including the dice. And if the dice are, violating everybody's fun, they don't get to be as active a role. And so, I think, I don't know, that's my take on it. I know it's not everybody's.
I really like that,
it.
though. Yeah.
I love it. And I love what you're saying about characters, because as a theater person, that is the piece. I love combat. I love it when you roll a natural 20 and you're like, yeah, but that is so much fun in the rule set, but I love the character development over the long term so much more. We are almost out of time. These hours like fly every single week.
It's an hour already.
Honestly, it's been 56 minutes.
Wow.
I need to make this show longer, because there's no way that. Let me ask this: who are some other inspiring players, games, play styles? Take a few minutes to shout out anybody who needs the highlight put on them.
All right. Well, I will first shout out everybody involved in Curse of Strahd Twice Bitten and all of the TPK roleplay streams that I've been in. Let me run down the list. In Twice Bitten, our illustrious DM was Dragnacarta. He is on Twitter at twitter.com/Dragnacarta. There's Zio, who I hope is still in chat, who, again, just did so much for the production behind the scenes, as well as interviewing creators from the community every week for our break video, and got to highlight so many people that, were doing fantastic stuff. And then my fellow players, Jack, Linus, Serena, and Twy. Of those, only Jack and Serena have Twitters, and they recently, we were putting together a list of links to, put in public as to where you can find the rest of our stuff. And both of them said, please don't put our personal Twitters up. So I'm not going to shout them out here. The too many DMs and players in the TPK roleplay streams for me to say individually, but please do follow TPK roleplay on Twitter. Just so many fantastic shows and both series and one shots. Such a wide variety, really. It is a channel with, you can find anything if you're in the mood to watch a campaign that's really dark and gritty, or really lighthearted and wacky, or if you want to watch just like a one shot about the stream that I was in on Monday, a one shot. It was basically a playtest of a very indie game. The writer didn't even want to call it a TTRPG, a storytelling game about surviving the end of the world. In addition to that, I would like to specifically call out again Warren Tusk, who is a dear friend, basically my LARP mentor, and has shaped so much of the way that I think about characters and role playing and just interacting with other people in general, as well as some of the amazing people that I've met in TTRPG Twitter, including Cassie, who was here earlier, Zombear, who might still be here, Nathan from Reckless Attack, Matthew from Abyssal Brews, Pip Fizzlebang, just people who make it their mission to uplift others. way too many people for me to mention individually. So, you know, if you see this and I didn't mention you, it's not because I don't love you. And finally, I would like to shout out Lord Pido, who is in chat, who went on an unreasonably intricate experiment with me trying to write a theatrical style LARP in text form on Discord. And now we're kind of maybe trying to make that into a video game. Anyway, best collaborator I've ever had, and just so supportive of me through everything. So, and finally, just thank you, Sarah, for inviting me here and for showcasing so many amazing people in general. This is such a great experience, and I'm so glad that I've had this opportunity.
Thank you so much. This is a labor of love for me. I love this show. It is. I love this the D&D stream that I do, but this show is really what I'm here about. So I thank you so much for coming on. Where in the next like week or two, or regular things, where can people find you?
So I am on Twitter at Rahab_Acatriel. I am probably going to be slightly less active than usual the next month or so because of moving. In addition, I have a whole bunch of other things that I work on that are linked in my link tree. But specifically, I am currently working on an article that has the rather clickbaity title, Stop Making Characters Who Are Good at Things. And I'm going to go a little bit further into my thoughts about how to make, let's say, psychologically interesting characters. So that is going to be posted on Medium in hopefully a week or so, whenever I finish writing it. And I'm also going to be plugging it on Twitter. A little later in the month of April, I'm going to be on a TPK roleplay one-shot for a game called Basic Witches, which is going to be a lot of fun. It's a TTRPG about being teenage femmes who cast spells with pumpkin spice lattes and draw sigils and liquid lipstick. And
love this. I'm in.
I am so looking forward to it.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been so good. Next week I have Zeal at ZealProphet27 on, and then Glyza and Space Jamber is coming on in a few weeks. Luna, Gamer Mom Luna, just the lineup has been just so exciting. And I'm looking forward to this. And if you would like to be on, if you're in the chat and you would like to be on, I would love to have you. I'm just like at the end of my booking cycle. So I'm booking for May and June. If you're interested, hit me up on Twitter. You can find me at smorad. We're going to raid somebody because we always send the love on to somebody else. And my raid button is back. Look at that. But it doesn't show everybody. Why doesn't, when you click raid on, it doesn't show everybody, and it's making me crazy. I would love to send this to some female content. That would be really like the best. You know who I'm going to send it to? I'm going to send this over to the D&D channel where B-Dave is hosting. B-Dave is the DM. Cipher of Tyr Cipher of Tyr is one of the players. I think it's Black Dice Society is I think what they're playing right now. And they're doing good work. So we're going to send it to them. Thanks everybody for watching. Come back next week. Hit the follow if you haven't hit the follow. And come back next week. And Kaiya, I'm so glad that I got to talk with you, and we're going to have to figure out the LARP thing. So
definitely. Yes. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
This was so much fun. Thanks everybody. Go to the raid. Shout out We Love Kaiya as the raid call. And we will see you guys next week. Thanks so much. Bye for now.